Hello everyone, and welcome to Learn How Robotics is Accelerating Construction Layout Speed, a webinar sponsored and presented by HP. My name is Tao Nguyen, AWCI's Education Program Manager. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. Attendees should be on mute throughout the whole presentation. Should you have a question at any time during today's broadcast, please submit it using the question box in your GoToWebinar dashboard. There will be a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Handouts are available for download in the Handout tab. At this time, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Andy Dickey, who is the head of HP Construction Services for the Americas, Australia, and New Zealand. Andy has worked as a rebar detailer, concrete estimator, project manager, business development executive, and director with a heavy focus on information technologies. His past efforts include product management and business strategies for technology solutions, targeting construction management firms and general contractors in the commercial, civil, and industrial sectors. Joining him today is also a guest speaker, Chris McKee, Reality Capture Manager at Turner Construction. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Andy to start the presentation.
Thanks, Tal, and I'm really privileged to be here with you all. One of the things that doesn't come across in my bio is that I'm a recovering subcontractor, concrete to be specific, and my passion has always been bringing technology together with construction, including when I was pouring concrete myself. So again, thanks to everyone for being here. I know everyone's super busy and it's hard to take time out of your day to do something like this, and we certainly appreciate it. What I'm going to talk about today is one aspect of construction technology, which is robotic layout. There are many aspects of the technology we bring to bear on construction, but I'll be focused on this one. Just a brief overview. I'll begin by just having a look at the current state of interior construction. Nobody knows it better than you guys, but just to illustrate a few points, how automation and smart construction is starting to take hold in our world, and the role of a solution called HP SitePrint in that. And then we'll close it out with an interview with Chris McKee from Turner. Unfortunately, Chris is on vacation, so we recorded, I think it was last week, his portion of it, but I'll be here to answer any questions you might have for Chris. And if I don't have the answer, I'll try to get the answer for you from Chris. This is just one. There are a lot of metrics that you can use to measure a market, particularly in construction. You can do it by the number of employees or overall revenue. The one we chose to examine closely was the amount of gypsum board that gets sold every year around the world. And what we learned in that process is that it's rapidly growing, as you can see from the compound annual growth rate projections through 2030. It's a big industry with a lot of employees. So it's a growing industry. It's an important industry that's part of construction. And it deserves to have all the best tools, just like any other industry. One of the things that we're facing right now is that while the industry is growing, the chart you see on the right is how we've seen job openings climb year over year for the longest time. What that means is that we have openings, but we can't fill them. And simultaneous to that, productivity in the construction industry compared to other industries is essentially flat, which is a huge problem. And this problem is no more acute than it is in layout, because layout is usually someone super smart that knows how to read drawings, has a deep level of drawing literacy, and they're often part of leadership, meaning that they're going to go help the guys lay out today, and then during that time, people are going to come up and ask questions, or tomorrow they're just going to be leading the folks out on the job site. So it's definitely a big problem in the industry. And this is sort of everything we've looked at up to now is at a macro level, but we also face a lot of challenges at the micro level or the job site. So layout itself is a manual process that's fraught with a lot of risk, injury being one of them. A lot of the soft tissue injuries that I dealt with as a leader in construction and helping people, get health care through workman's comp and GL had to do with layout, people crawling around on the floor, and they're focused on layout and reading a drawing and backing into something and getting hurt. So it's definitely a problem from that perspective. I already touched on it a bit, the lack of skilled labor. layout people, good ones, are highly skilled, highly sought after, and in very short supply. Anytime we do something manually, whether it's at home or at work, it's open to mistakes and the need to rework that work once it's done. So, and then also because layout sits on the critical path, if we have this resource problem, it can lead to a lot of delays and cost overruns. And I think that's something that everyone in the interior space has faced before. I know certainly we faced it in the concrete space as well. So Tal's going to trigger the first poll question. This is a trick we play to keep everybody's attention. So the first question is, do you perform your own layout?
All right, so 64% says yes and 36% says no.
All right, yeah, that follows what we see in our work day to day as well. So we've got a lot of people that do it in-house, or they use a surveying company or a layout specialist as well. So interesting to see this group matching what we've been seeing before. This is a few words from someone that I really think highly of, Jerry Rivera from L5 Drywall out in California. I won't read it to you, but basically, if we make mistakes out in the field, they're very costly. You have to rip things out and put them back. And one of the complaints he shared with me over a beer the last time we were hanging out was that his biggest frustration as an owner is that oftentimes if he's not on the job site, if they're working during a busy time, a lot of the times things get ripped out and replaced and he doesn't even know about it. All he sees is a job cost report where a certain area or a certain part of the project costs more than it should have. So having systems in place to track what's going on the job site, or better still, prevent these problems from happening to begin with, are essential. And one of the things that's happened over the past years to sort of address some of these problems is digital tools that we can use in the field. And that's everything from tablets to cell phones and all the things that you can think of. And we had this assumption when we were developing this solution and wondering, should we take it to market? But we also we're HP, so we like science and facts and metrics. So we conducted a survey of the industry over a number of countries, through a number of roles, and 71% of the people that were polled believe that technological innovation will help solve some of these problems, like errors and shortage of labor. Now, the digital tool that we're going to be, the area of digitalization that we're going to be discussing today sort of falls under what's called automation and smart construction. So we've seen all sorts of robots across the industry, including some that mud and tape drywall and that sort of thing. What we'll be focused on today is robotic layout, as I mentioned. The one you see on the screen is the one that we make. So what are some key considerations if you're considering adopting robotic layout? The first thing I would say is probably fast integration. What does that mean? That doesn't mean necessarily technical integration. It means, how am I going to integrate this into the way we do business day after day? The second thing that I would probably recommend is look for tools that include cloud connected solutions. Why is that important? Well, those types of solutions are easy to deploy across your whole company. They also store all the data in one place. So that means everyone's looking at a single source of truth. So our particular robotic layout solution, you can log into the cloud and you can see what the progress is in terms of layout on a certain job. When did it finish? How long did it take? That sort of thing. I would also keep in mind the cost and the ROI. A lot of people don't even know what they spend on layout because they're using supervision to do it, or they're using a lead carpenter or something like that, and all of their time gets coded to those cost codes and not a layout cost code. But look for tools to help you calculate what you're spending today and really evaluate that deeply versus what you would pay for a robotic layout solution. And then the last thing, and it's probably the most important thing, is we all have adopted new things in the workplace, and not just technology, new policies, the office is moved. People don't like change. I would probably in some areas of my life count myself in that. one way to combat this when you're adopting a solution like robotic layout is to make sure that all the key stakeholders, regardless of where they fall in the pecking order, are along for the ride. So if you're going to have a dealer come out and do a demo, make sure that your lead carpenter, your superintendent, your project manager, even representatives from the GC, if you're not a self-performed GC doing drywall, if you're a subcontractor, invite a representative from the GC to get involved in the demo so that everybody's on the same page and feel like they have a say in what's going to happen next on their projects. So the next polling question from Tal is, what is your total station OEM preference? So OEM means the people that make the total station. So Topcon, Trimble, Leica, or someone else.
So 53% has no preference, 18% for Topcon, Leica 6%, and Trimble 24%.
Interesting, interesting. So without further ado, we can talk about our robotic layout solution, HP SitePrint, which is what you see pictured here. It's just some quick background. It weighs about 20 pounds. It fits in a case that is checkable on an airplane, although you have to pull the batteries out and carry them in your carry-on. So it's highly mobile, and it positions itself by communicating with a robotic total station. So it shoots that prism there on the top, and you load it up with your files, and away you go. So why would someone want to use one of these things? I mean, the number one thing is boosting productivity. So in the interior space, you know, we say, because we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, we say up to 10x productivity increase. I've seen higher, and it's like anything in construction, it just depends on what you're laying out, how long it's going to take, and how much more productive it is. So I usually give a range. It's going to be anywhere from 3x up to 15x, depending on what you're laying out. I think one of the useful aspects of HP SitePrint is that it's highly autonomous. So it's got obstacle sensors and cliff sensors, so it doesn't bang into things. It doesn't drive off the edge of the building when you're not manually operating it. And what that enables your layout personnel to do, especially if they're leadership, if somebody has a question, they can come up and ask it. If you need to text that person from the office, they can field that text or that phone call. So it's not just about saving time for the existing team. It's about, you know, taking the number of people that you've been using, 2 to 3 people, and reducing it down to 1 person, but also that 1 person can do other things while keeping an eye on the robot, but also working on other things as well. And the end result, you know, as you can see in the picture, it's pretty rugged. It can drive over obstacles up to 3/4 of an inch. It prints points, lines, text. You can take information from a building information model or a CAD file or a CSV file. We see that a lot with MEP and fire protection. They're just laying out points and text. They can import those and quickly go to the site and lay them out. So one of the big questions that we get a lot is how accurate it is. It's plus or minus an eighth, which is perfect for the vast majority of use cases. Depending on how you do your setup and what sort of total station equipment you're using and so on and so forth, you can do better than that at times, but we try to under promise and over deliver. The second point is, when you use a digital solution, you're avoiding human error. So it's sort of, if the content you're putting into the robot is good, your setup is good, you're going to get a very consistent, reliable layout output much faster with 1 person than what 3 people could do. And also, this is something, you know, close to my heart. Spending a lot of time in construction, you're going to reduce the potential for injury. As I mentioned before, I see 2 people in this picture at least doing things that are probably putting a lot of wear and tear on their body over a number of years. I know a lot of layout people that have had a couple of knee replacements. So that's an important benefit. You know, HP is certainly a people first company, and I know all of you are too. So it's nice to know that you can do layout now standing fully upright, minding a robot rather than doing it with your own hands. So how does it work? Everything begins with CAD preparation. So you take the drawings for the job, and you clean them up a little bit to make sure that you're only printing what you want to print. So I'll give an example of that. You've got a architectural wall in the CAD file that's got the drywall drawn in there. Maybe you don't want to print the drywall line, you just want to print the track line. You can choose to do that or not do that. Maybe there's a job with some really complicated door swing situations in there. You can choose to print the door swings, including the curve for the door swing if you want. You can put text labels down. So everything begins with CAD prep. On the site prep side, which comes next, we're really proud of the fact that we usually tell people that it has to be chalk clean, meaning like whatever you would do for a chalk line, you do for us. But in practice, you don't really even need to go that far because it's ink and it's wet and it can penetrate dust up to a certain extent. And once you get everything ready to go in terms of clearing obstacles and that sort of thing, you're ready to get set up. Setup is quick. It usually takes 10 minutes or less. So it's setting up a total station, shooting at minimum a couple of control points that the contractor has provided. And as long as those two control points exist in the same place in the CAD prep, that's all you need to do. And then next comes job execution. It's literally just click a play button. And then after that, you've got tools in the cloud, as I mentioned before, to do end-to-end management of all your jobs and their status. So Tom, for the next polling question, do you know what you spend on layout?
All right, Andy, so 59% says yes and 41 says no, so almost like half and half. Pretty close.
Yeah, I'm amazed by that. I would say in practice, because that's what I do for a living, is meet with contractors and help contractors. Usually in practice, it's about 80% don't know what they spend on layout. And that's just primarily for the reasons I stated before. They've got existing staff who normally do other tasks doing it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris. He is really, really excited about HP SitePrint. They've done quite a bit of work so far. And Chris is just here to tell us about what his experiences are. If you want to know more about his background, please check out his LinkedIn profile. But with that, I will cue the video of our chat. It's my pleasure to be joined by Chris McKee from Turner Construction here today. I know this is the topic that everybody's been waiting to hear about, some real experiences from the field from one of their peers. Chris, happy to have you here.
Oh, happy to be here. It's always fun.
Yeah, so I've got a few questions for you. I know, don't feel like we're putting you on the spot, so just answer however you like. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in the layout process?
Stuff being in the way is the biggest challenge. I mean, you can get to a job as soon as the concrete's poured is probably the best time to do it, but typically that doesn't happen very often. But having a job that has just things out of the way, stub ups aren't there yet, equipment hasn't been brought in, that's key. If you can get to a job where it's cleaned, or like shortly after concrete, it's clean, there's no equipment there, people haven't brought their tools and stuff in, and stub ups haven't been installed yet, then that's the time to start printing. If you can get to it at that point, it saves a whole bunch of time because you don't have to move things around and start phasing things and staging things as you go into certain areas and print this area, and then you have to wait for that to move and then you print to another area. So yeah, that's the biggest challenge. Probably the next one is file management. It's getting the files from Revit and prepping them, trying to find the right ones with the right information, getting them with the right information in it so you can use it. But that's starting to become a little easier because of the way that we have our models organized and coordinated. It's easy to export from Revit to a DWG file and just erase some stuff and send it up. Good to go.
For sure. I know we're always worried about people being in our way when we're wanting to lay out, but also what you're describing is a benefit. We're not in other people's way either, too. So it kind of cuts both ways. So I mean, we're always in a rush in construction and rushing tends to lead to mistakes from time to time. How often do mistakes and rework happen as a result of inaccurate layout, do you think?
Well, it primarily, from what we've seen so far, it has to do with the file. So if the file's not coordinated, so if the model's not coordinated, because everything we do is based off the model, everything. And if the model's not coordinated, then and they rush it out, that's when the mistakes happen. So based on what we do, because reality capture team works so closely with VDC, the coordination teams, that if they start rushing things out, I can go directly to the coordination team and say, hey, is this ready? Has it been coordinated? And they go, yeah, it's coordinated. Go ahead and send it out. And then I can take the information and go from there. Or no, we haven't even got there yet. So I don't even print it. Because if I happen to print it and it's not even coordinated yet, then it doesn't do me any good. It has to be coordinated. All the trade partners have to be on the same agreement that this is where things are going, and be done with it. And once you have that coordinated file, then there's not much to do about it. You just export it to DWG and start printing. That's key.
All right. So this is a big topic in our business. HP SitePrint doing layout around the world. But I'm curious what you have to say about it. A big challenge we face is nobody really knows what they're spending on layout. Do you have any visibility, or what's your experience been with how you estimate layout costs?
So yeah, that is a big thing. What we've been doing is kind of base it on manpower projections. So if it takes a 2 or 3 man crew, they usually know how long it takes for them to lay out a wall or hangers. And we've been taking that number based on past information and trying to do a job that is similar to what they've already bid on. And we've done that a couple times. And so far, we've saved about 2/3 of the time. I know that you guys are saying it saves about half time. We're almost on the 2/3 side because we can do it faster than a 2 or 3 man crew with one person. So if you kind of use that, even if you use the half, it's twice as fast. You kind of base it on what job you've already done and it's print the same job. Whether it's putting up walls or, like I said, hangers. We put hangers on the floor with little targets, and they set a laser on it, and it shoots it up, and now they know where the hangers. That's super easy, and the time it takes for even one person to lay that out, we can do it faster with the robot.
That's interesting. I mean, that's what we see pretty much across the board. Nobody really tracks it. It's buried in supervision labor or somewhere in a subcontract, and so they have to actually reconstruct it.
Yeah, it's
after
hard.
After the fact. Yeah, it is really, really hard, and nobody wants to make a big decision like this on instinct. So it's good to hear that you guys did that calculation. So I've had this burning question because I haven't had much time to spend with you guys. Alex has been, with you guys every step of the way. What first piqued your interest in the HP SitePrint?
Cost. I'll be honest. It was all cost. The other guys,
now by cost, do you mean business model, like the structure of it, or the actual costs, or both, or
the actual cost of the equipment? The other guys, your competitors, I mean, they have a good product too, but the cost of what it takes to do that was insane. And Turner likes to own the stuff, so we can modify it, and we can play with it, and we can test it, and we can move it from site to site without having to worry about creating new contracts or new workflows or anything like that. But when you guys came out with the equipment, and we looked into it to make sure that it was at least doing the same thing as the competitors, the cost of it was a no-brainer, especially because we're Topcon users. Well, at least in my area, we use Topcon equipment, so it was really easy to get another total station of the LN150. That was easy to set up. So once we figured out that we could do all of that, it was like, well, even if it's not what they say it is, which is half as fast, we're still better off based on the cost than we are your competitors. So yeah, it came right down. Most of the stuff that we do is all based on cost. We try things and we experiment with things based on the cost. If the cost works and we can try it, then we're good for it. If it doesn't work, then it's like, okay, then we can write that off on like an innovation type budget and then maybe move that to a different location, have them try it. But right now, the HP is working fantastic, so it's not going anywhere. We'll probably buy a couple more actually.
Well, I'm definitely glad to hear that. You mentioned competition. I mean, we know you have choices. I'm curious, aside from the cost, is there anything that sets HP SitePrint apart that's kind of makes your top whatever list?
Well, not knowing this before we bought it, but the ease of it, you could tell that you put a lot of work into making it easy, because it's almost boring. Well, it is boring.
We say that
It's
about our demos. If you tell someone
so
you make a
boring.
robot that lays out, 2 minutes into the demo, you pretty much got the whole thing. It's laying out.
Yeah, I mean, because we go to a job site, we get everything set up, and now it's like, okay, I guess we just sit there and watch the robot, print stuff. It's so boring, but it's also really easy to use. I mean, you have to have some CAD skills, but nowadays that's kind of, everybody has that. The HP ribbon inside of AutoCAD was really simple to use, picking the 3 categories and selecting the layers to go into each one of those categories. That's pretty easy to do too. And then once you export it to DXF and upload it,
Away you go.
it's really simple. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
simple.
Well, that's nice to hear for sure. We definitely have put a lot of effort into usability, and we get a mountain of feature requests that we could do, but the more, as you know, the more you, as a technologist, the more you add to something, the more complicated you make it. So it's been a labor of love to sort of balance needs and what's going to make it remain usable and all those things.
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I'd like to see in there, but I'm a surveyor, so I like to see surveying stuff, but I understand why it's not in there. So
well, that's good. That's good to hear. Thank you for your understanding.
Yeah.
Well, how would you summarize your experience with, just to close it out, how would you summarize your experience with HP SitePrint so far?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I mean, we always have a lot of people that in the company that are like, really, does it really work that easy? And we've done 2 fairly large jobs within the last 3 weeks, and now it's catching on like wildfire. So the ease of it, the cost, and just kind of training on it, because I've already trained somebody on it and he picked it up really quick. It's fantastic. I mean, like I said, we always try to see how it's going to work when we purchase it, but this is really paid off on the purchase because of the amount of work that the time that we've been reducing based on the work, and how easy it is to make modifications and to upload new versions. It's fantastic. I can't complain about it. It's great.
Well, we appreciate it. I know there's a lot of people in the lab that when they hear this kind of stuff, all those late nights, it's gonna feel worth it. So I appreciate it, and
we'll have them bring them out. We'll show them. We'll get them dirty.
Yeah, for sure. I will definitely take you up on that. Well, Chris, I want to say thanks. I know you're super busy, running around, running a robot, doing so many other things, and your time is valuable. And I know I speak for the audience as well. We're really glad you took the time out. It's a valuable experience and insight that you have, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for putting in all the hard work. It really paid off. It's working well.
All right. So I know I already thanked Chris, but I'm gonna do it again, just because self-perform is a fast-growing part of Turner's business, and I know Chris is enjoying being a part of that as well, and having a lot of fun. So with that, I think we're gonna go, unless Tal has any objections, we're gonna go with a Q&A session.
No, just a couple on in the queue here. Just like, which total stations is SitePrint compatible with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have 3 total station partners, Trimble, Topcon, and Leica. So I'll just kind of take them one by one. We're compatible with the Trimble RTS 573, the Topcon LN150, and there are 3 in the Leica bucket. The first one is the TS16, which is more of a survey instrument, and then 2 construction layout instruments, the Icon 70 and the Icon 80.
Some logistic here. So how long does the battery last for that?
Oh yeah, so it comes with 2 batteries. Each are good for 4 hours each. They take about 2 hours to charge, so you can essentially run the robot continuously.
I think you mentioned this before, but how clean must the site be before printing?
Yeah, it can be pretty dirty. I don't know how to quantify it. That's something we all kid about on this team, is that we tell people chalk clean. Like whatever you're going to do for your normal layout in terms of cleanliness, do that. But there are some applications that a little bit of dust being on the slab is actually a good thing, because then when the dust blows away, there's ink left and it's a very crisp line, you know? So it can, I encourage you to buy one and test it. How about that? You know, it's hard to quantify, but it can be pretty dirty. So I'll give some background on that answer. In North America, we trowel finish concrete almost exclusively if it's interior. In the rest of the world, generally, unless it's a high traffic area or something like that, like an airport, they'll just strike it off and run a bull float and let it set, because they're going to put a floor covering. They'll either put lightweight concrete if the final surface is concrete, or they'll put tile or carpet or something like that. So the slabs that HP SitePrint runs on around the world are pretty rough. So put it through its paces. I'll challenge the audience with that.
Great. The 2-parter here is, how accurate is it and how fast is this robot?
Yeah, so it's plus or minus an eighth. We often see it do better, but when again, we don't want to overpromise, so that it's situationally dependent. There's a lot of factors that actually go in to the accuracy. So when was the last time your prism you're using to shoot control with was calibrated? When was the last time your total station was either field calibrated or shop calibrated? There's also, a fine tuning regimen after you use HP SitePrint a ton that you can do to make it more accurate. So a lot of it's situationally dependent. The other thing with accuracy is there's sort of a Goldilocks zone, even though depending on the total station that you use, it's going to dictate how far away you can get with the robot from the total station. Some of those are hundreds of feet. The Goldilocks zone is really between 15 and 150 feet. So if you get closer than 15 feet, because the angle is so extreme between the total station shooting the prism on top of the robot, between the robot and between the total station, you can get some degradation of accuracy. So sometimes you can't help it, and it depends on the application. So if you're laying out the ceiling for an operating room, operating rooms are big, but there's going to be cases where you're going to have to get close to the total station or do a second setup. And sometimes if it's, if you don't have a super tight accuracy for laying out things in the ceiling, like the ceiling grid, or if you've got a HEPA filter or lighting or something like that, that you've got to account for, that needs to be dimensionally accurate, usually it works just fine. And the other one was about speed. Again, it's fast. It's way faster than a human. So the published specs are 0.4 meters per second, because science is all in metric, which is roughly a yard. So 0.4 meters a second when you're controlling it, and 0.25 when it's operating autonomously. And then really more so than that, the algorithm is what dictates the speed. So we have tons of optimizations. I'm just giving the background. You can do up to 4,000 square feet an hour on a fairly dense layout. If it's not dense, then you can go even faster than that. On the point side of it, just to kind of give something relative, you know, it's no problem to do a point and the text labeling what that point is for, you know, 160, 170 of those an hour, depending on how they're configured and laid out. And we're constantly making improvements in that. All of those numbers are going to continue to go up.
Okay, so this is a two-part. The first part I think you've answered, but I'm just going to read it again because it goes together. What is the cost, and what is the total station are you most compatible with? So you answered that part, but what's the cost?
Yeah, so I'll take the easy one first, which is which are we most compatible with? We're equally compatible with all of them, and that's one of the things that makes R&D pull their hair out. So every time we do an update, and we do it often, we just did another one yesterday or the day before. You know, they have to go. The testing team has to go through and test each and every feature and each and every capability for each and every total station. So there's not one that is more compatible than the other. What was the first part of that question?
What is the cost?
Oh, the cost. So as a policy, because the internet's worldwide and there are different prices all over the world, we don't put prices on webinars and things like that. But I can talk about the structure. So the first thing you do is you buy the robot. So our robot. And of course, if you don't, the reason why we decided to go with a total station as a part of our positioning equipment is that we're trying to ensure that if you're a company that's familiar with total stations and you own one, that chances are you won't have to buy it again. Or in reverse, the nice thing about using a total station is there might be a layout case where you don't want to fire up the robot, you just want to use the total station to go lay some stuff out or transfer control or something like that. You have the option to do that. It's not a positioning system dedicated to the robot, so, the HP SitePrint robot. So you buy HP SitePrint and then you own it, and then you pay a usage fee, and you can choose 3 different ways to do that. One is square footage, which is the vast majority of our customers use it because it's the best value. The second is lines. The third is points, and it's a price per square foot, per point, per line. And that comes with unlimited ink, unlimited support, unlimited repairs, and then your local dealer is obligated, if you have a robot that's under repair, which happens, and job site's a rough place, they have to give you a loaner to use while they're repairing your robot. But we also have an ROI cost calculator, so you can plug in what is it that you're paying for your layout crews today, and then you can also calculate side by side what the HP SitePrint costs are.
Okay, so piggyback on that, do you send out robotics for training runs before purchasing?
Well, every robot that you purchase comes with a training class, right? So you can, I think the number's 5 people. You can train up to 5 people in that training class. A lot of our dealers offer rentals. There are what we call layout as a service. It's really just paying someone else to do layout. We coined the phrase because in some countries they're surveying firms, in some countries they're called something else. So we try to make a generic term, and sort of every kind of packaging you can think of. At least one of our dealers is going to offer that, or one of our customers who's using our robot to do layout for people. There's all sorts of options for how to do that. And you know, dealers will offer training. Some people want to they can get the PO approved for training before they can get the PO approved for the purchase. So you can buy the training and take the training, but you have to pay for it. It's not free in a case like that.
Okay,
I hope I answered the question.
One more question. Does it come with a warranty?
It does. It does. It comes with a manufacturer's warranty, but then of course, the interesting thing about this modern world we live in, so the reason why we have the usage fee is we tried 4 different business models, and finally we said, hey, just tell us what you want it to be. And what we have now, the buy and pay a usage fee, is what the focus group told us that they wanted. It's an interesting kind of a thing because the usage fee comes with service, including a loaner. So it's kind of a blurred situation between, is this a warranty situation or is it just part of the service? But as long as you're paying the usage fee and you're using the robot in a normal fashion, meaning, you know, you're not running it out, you know, in the Arctic Circle or anything like that, then it's covered under the service fee.
With an estimate, can you give us a reasonable life cycle of the robot?
Well, our obsolescence commitment is 5 years, so we won't make it obsolete, without giving 5 years notice on doing that. In terms of the durability, it's been we've not had one just completely go down and be utterly unrepairable to my knowledge yet. And we've sold a lot of these things since we launched a year ago. So I don't know how to answer that question because they're not break. I'll just say that the projections we made about when they would go kaput were way shorter than what's happening in real life. So really, we don't know. They just keep going.
And who are the dealers that you're working with out in Arizona? This is very area specific.
Yeah, that's a very specific question. What I would recommend is if you just Google HP SitePrint and go to our webpage, there right at the top, there's a Connect with Us button. Click on that and fill out the form, and one of the members of the inside sales team will reach out right away. So, and tell you, because they have the list, because there's no white space in the United States. We have over 40 dealers with locations all over the place, and I don't want to say it right off the top of my head and get it wrong.
Right, it's a lot. So like
yeah,
Andy
it's a lot. Well, it's the juxtaposition. Like I know all the dealers pretty much personally, except for maybe a couple, but memorizing every territory that they cover is a little bit different.
Yeah, that whatever Andy's mentioned, it's on the PowerPoint right now. That's a good site to go to. So with that question, I think that concludes our presentation today. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you to Chris for being our guest speaker, and thank you to HP for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.